spend the next hour and a half with you discussing training trainers. So much experience in the groups. Everybody here is a trainer? Okay, let's do a Chris Iveson. Groups of 3. Talk amongst yourselves. If there is a difference, big if there is a difference between training trainers and training the actual practitioners or people doing the work, what might that difference be? What have you noticed in your practice? Any little detail, and we'd love to gather them afterwards. How many minutes, Jonas?
10.
10 minutes. Groups of 3. I could go really Chris Iveson and say, the person with the most blue in their clothes starts, but let's leave that.
Okay, shall we start reflecting together? Love to hear. I mean, we were eavesdropping, and there were lots of lovely ideas. Yeah, we were eavesdropping. Yeah? That's what we do. And we'd love to just pick up at least a couple of things from every group, preferably more. But so, what were your answers to this? What came up when you were thinking of differences between, if any, between training practitioners and training trainers? Who wants to go first? And really, and not just what you were talking about in your group, but also what's coming up now. Who wants to start?
I start with saying maturing process. Just a few words about it's a maturing process for people. Yeah, so to get there, to be a trainer, but also as a practitioner, you have to do something with what you learn afterwards. So it's how can you support people to mature towards a level that is good enough for them to continue their journey.
What does it mean to mature? What's different maturing trainers, maturing practitioners? Yeah. What? Imagine practitioners mature was.
Well, for me, the difference could be that for trainers, there can be a kind of a level that they need to obtain in order to be able to be a trainer for a certain approach. So there can be some, barriers they have, barriers or levels they have to achieve. Yeah. And for practitioners, they also try things, but might not always be that it's checked afterwards that they have to do something in a certain way. So there's might be a bit more freedom over there, could be.
What else?
Go ahead. I could try to make it more specific how I do it. There's a difference between my leadership trainings and my train the trainer, train the facilitators training. And the main difference is that people in my train the trainers workshops have to do a project, have to do something in which they show what they've learned, and they have to document it. And there is some self-reflection in it, and some customer feedback in it, and some description of what they did, and so I have the idea that supports them a lot to do it self, to work more. I don't know the English word for that. Selbstständig. Independent. Yeah, independent. Yes. Yeah. Independent from me, especially. Yeah.
More, Marco.
I'm not sure, but it came to my mind. I experience trainees in a training. I think they. Okay, the trainee trainer. I think they have a little bit of different expectation towards the trainer.
A different expectation.
Yes, and in my experience, the trainees in a training, they expect that the trainer is an expert. And it's harder for them to accept that they are the experts.
To be clear, in which version?
Training with practitioners, for them it is easy to understand that they are the experts.
Right.
Training,
When we do train,
when you train trainers, the trainers expect that the trainer is the expert. It has to do with the role model. I have experiences with solution-focused practitioners who wanted to learn solution-focused mediation. Solution-focused practitioners who did not do mediation, but they did coaching, training, and many things. And they came and they always ask you, how do you do it? Tell us how you do it. And it was very difficult to help them to start reflecting of how they do it, because they already did it.
Marco was mediation trainer for, amongst others, myself, but Peter as well, in the same training, in mediation training. And we were an expert group, but also just pupils. Yeah. And we were so mad as a group to Marco, who always answered our questions with a new question. What? Yeah. And we were really paralyzed. Yeah. Oh, please tell us, how do you do it? Oh no, you're there. What would you think I would do in that situation? So it was wonderful to experience his way of teaching.
Did Marco have to change his interaction because of...
I wanted him at that time.
Interesting.
I'm sorry.
please, more.
I think there's another level there that's maybe an interesting distinction, that sometimes you're training practitioners who know they're going to be using SF in their own workspace in one way or another, explicitly and overtly, and sometimes we're training people in leadership or something else where we're using some SF and imparting some SF but without naming it necessarily. There may be some differences there, and I'm sure there are some different expectations. So an example from today, in the activity we started this morning, we described the activity that we use for people who are learning to be more like coaches in their managerial and leadership roles, and they're using SF coaching, so they know about SF. And they do the activity and reflect on it. But here, let's say here we're a group of trainers, so we're training trainers a little bit in that presentation. The additional things that we were saying were commentary about it. There's a meta commentary, and we say that our participants maybe struggle a bit with this, or you might think about doing it like that. So we're sharing not just content, but a process and an activity that you can use, and it comes with some footnotes and tips attached.
That's fascinating. Fascinating. So there's another layer of commentary.
Yes.
Not just the interaction between us in the exercise, but also about the exercise as it is unfolding and what helps. And
With interest to trainers.
with interest to trainers, exactly.
Is that what Marco would call sharing your expertise, how you do it?
Probably.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, I don't mind doing that. Come to my trainings, I'll share my expertise.
Yeah, and I wonder if that sharing of that expertise is also done together with the people that you're with. I mean, you're doing it interactively.
One aspect I discovered thanks to this round is training practitioners. It's a good thing they are excited about the model. And training trainers, I think it's important that they have a horizon beyond that, so they are not excited about the model, but they are excited about the discovery of the model through others. And yeah, so not just being excited about solution focus, because then you probably stick with your own version, with your own favorite stuff and your own knowledge. And I think training others, it means to allow them passes different or individual paths to discover that and discover what they do discover. That's subtle and invites other questions on my side, training a trainer, because then we discuss a lot about this discovery process and not about not about solution focus, I would say.
And do you make that explicit? So you did that, how is discovered?
In the example I'm thinking of, I did ask about that difference. And it was a meaningful difference for me, and not even probably for the trainee. But I think the person recognized that too, that shift of it's not just about gathering knowledge about the approach, it's getting more flexible in ways how to follow people discovering solution focus in their own ways. Wow, I love that.
But this also connects to there's a different level of a different realm of inquiry that is also present training trainers beyond the approach or beyond the practice.
I would agree with that.
That's interesting.
I would agree. I think it's important to distinguish between whether it's a conversation between experts, and trainees are also experts, but the trainer is an expert, and the other process of learning. Of learning by yourself, of self-growth. I think there is the difference. But this layer, sure it must be.
And again, what Marco mentioned in our discussion was that it might be a difference if the trainers you train are about to train solution focus to others or anything else. So, and I sum up with, if they train anything else, they're practitioners, right? So they use solution focus for training anything else. It's like they use solution focus as leaders or as team members or as teachers, whatever. And there is a difference if you train trainers who want to train solution focus to others, because those come mostly with some experience in solution focus. This is why they have another level of experience in solution focus, most of them. And they observe in different levels, on more than one level. They observe what you do on solution focus, and they observe what you do on the solution focus training. So I think it's a bit more difficult for them to follow, because it's always on several focus points.
And I think what we're, I guess, and John, I'm sorry, because it's distracted by the camera. But anyway, this, but I think what we're interested in primarily focusing on in this workshop is just training SF trainers, right? Right. So we want more trainers, because there's this idea that the more trainers there are, the more people, the more accessible solution focus is available in where you are, wherever you are in the world.
Just listening to this conversation now, it's just making me curious, is what is a trainer? Because actually when you want people to teach SF, you're teaching them SF, the model, if we call it that. Yeah, I hate calling it a model. The framework is a better way. You're teaching them the model, and that this is how you use these tools, and here's some interesting variations on these tools, blah, blah, blah. But also, you're also teaching them a lot about collaboration and how do you work with a team. And that is, for me, SF training. I don't think I've ever seen an SF training where people stand with 50 slides and tell you the background and blah 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 blah. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm sad, actually, if that is out there, because to me, SF, it took me a long, like 15 years before it clicked with me that actually what we think is SF is not. A problem-focused person can train in exactly the same way, but using those collaboration tools. And that's, people say to me when I'm running workshops with leaders, for example, they say, oh, that's that exercise that you do, where you get us all to blah, blah, blah. That's really solution focused, isn't it? It's like, no, actually any trainer could do that. It's just I happen to do it in a solution focused way. And the joy of solution focus for me was being able to take it into, I used to do induction training for Visa all over Europe, Middle East and Africa and whatever. And I brought solution focus into it and the difference it made then in how they receive the tools, the resources, and hey, you know a lot about this already, all the skills that you've already got. So, yeah, what is a trainer is my fundamental philosophical question for you. Jonathan, you're brilliant at philosophical questions. So.
What a nice handover. I don't know, when you asked that question, one thing that we noticed when we met, we did this trainer program last year, and the first couple of sessions or the first half of the year, the idea of imposter syndrome came up a lot for some people. Am I a trainer? Who tells me I'm a trainer? When can I say I'm a trainer? Am I really a trainer? And what does that mean, right? And people had to try and find out that for themselves in a way, and we, different things helped, or different things enabled them to move beyond. I'm not a trainer yet. And I suppose one of the things that both Susan and I imagine Paul doing too, that we acknowledge them as trainers already, that they're already on their, they're not, nobody's at zero to begin with. They're already doing some level of training regardless, right? But another thing that came up to me when I was listening to you and everybody here, there's this idea from Nora Bateson, the message is not the meta message. I don't know if it's Gregory, probably. But the idea is, so if we train as a model, and that's the way I was trained long ago too, and I think we all can recognize the idea that we train as a model, there's a framework, there's a step-by-step kind of move into these spaces, and very clear delineation what we reduce it to be. But if that is the emphasis of the training, then the meta message is that the practice is very model-like. You have to move through these different spaces, but we don't say that because we say it's about collaboration and it's about working our best together. But that's not what we've actually done. That's not what's actually being registered. I mean, on some level, intellectually, yes, but we're also saying that it's about models. It's about, and that's very square, that's very stable. But we know that conversations are alive, they're moving, and they're never still, and they're much more than we possibly can reduce them to, and that happens. So one of the things I've been struggling a lot with doing training early on as a trainer myself was that people will come up to me on day 4 and say, look, these questions don't work for me. We've been trained to do it in this certain sequence, and we're all doing it the same. But my context is this, or my clients are that, and my personality is this. These words don't fit my language, right? And I had to start over. It's not about the questions. It's not about the model. It's about something else. And that's being more and more explicit now when we train trainers. It's that something else that need to have, because it's not just about the model. It's about the collaboration, the collaborating as a verb, because it's changing all the time. So we need to be with that. And how do we do that? How does a trainer become skilled in that, right? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, absolutely. And this is really hard because I don't think we really have the language for that. I don't think we have the words for that. I'm struggling to find what is that skill. Yeah.
Paul, I don't know if you remember that. Many years ago, we stood at a flip chart and we made a triangle, the excellence triangle. Yeah. If you want to learn some complex thing like solution focus, you need some tools, and that's the model, or no, parts of the model, and that's easy to learn for everybody. And on the trainer's level, you are a bit further. You have to learn the attitude, the stance, a solution-focused posture. Yeah? And that's much more work, and it never ends. I'm still working on it, and I think everybody here. And then there's this third point, even if you know the tools and if you have the stance, something can happen. Yeah? The situation is completely different than you thought. And then you have to improvise. So improvisation is the third element. And I think this is something that you only learn by experiencing, by using it, by doing it, and not in training, in real life. Yeah.
Interesting. So interesting. So cool. More ideas. And Adam, looking at Paul and Susan, is anything else coming, or can we stay in this space a bit longer?
I'm curious because I'm curious what your own answer would be to these questions.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. What are our own answers? What is the difference? I don't know. Let's have a look. Let's explore. Yeah. Paul and Susan, do you want to go?
I don't need a mic.
Oh, you've got one.
I think I learned a lot during this journey together with Jonas last year. And one thing is to even more slow down. Even more. I do that in ordinary training, and in this case, I think we did it more. And to reflect on the learning journey and to the different levels, exactly this question that we put out here in your group, and you add so much. I am so lucky to be here, I must say. Me and Jonas, we linger between the details of the training and the journey and the 12 days of planning and everything that will happen in between for them and for us. So it's sort of a really meta level in stop and reflecting and be mindful that each participant really need their own time to reflect in silence, alone, and also to use each other as a network. And to start this, and maybe I will show you some pictures later from what we did in Sweden. I have a picture from the very first day, and it's closely connected to the model that we handed out. We are so humble about models. We were before, and at least I am even more humble about models also in this. Mark McCurgo once said something about models are like scaffolding, and you maybe need them in the beginning to get a grip of stuff, and then it can also be in the way of your learning journey. So that's something that I really want to be mindful, to make them to pick like their own models for it. They are trainers, and they also need to be able about their, I don't know, in other models we call it parallel process, what triggers you, what makes you safe and stuff like that. We have to be really careful, and also about being careful about the imposter syndrome. I think you said that many people who come in to train the trainers, we experienced maybe they have it a little more than in usual training. I'm going to try to do this. So to be very mindful that to be really show that I really trust everybody in finding your own voice. So it's something like that. I know it's a long answer.
What are our ideas?
Our ideas, I think there is a distinct difference. I relate very much to the meta level, that and if we stick to we're training trainers to train SF, there is a double level, because not everybody comes in with the same experience, same knowledge base, so you need to kind of establish that, see where there's a need to add things. And there's the whole trainer aspect, building a program, setting up the room, setting up the space. It is, and I so relate to what you say about slowing down. The first few times I did it, I was really happy, by the way, that we did it with 3 of us, so we could temporize each other. People were falling asleep. Take it easy. Not too fast. We need to take more time. And that paid off. And again, it's an age-old SF wisdom, isn't it? If you want to go fast, go slow. But it was, I think it holds even more true when you're training on this meta level. Because every time there's so many levels that you want to reflect on and yeah.
I think what Marco was saying about they're expecting an expert is a bit of a paradox for me, because I'm also learning. I don't know, right? And I think I try to be in that space. So, for instance, in this process, this last year and a half, we got this huge EU grant to do Train the Trainers, a lovely project. I'd never done Train the Trainer before. It was on the program. We're going to do Train the Trainers in these 3 years because we want to have lots of trainers who are going to do lots and lots of training. So very early on in the project, we had this on the cards, and we're going to do Train the Trainers. And I've never done this before, right? Right, and Susan, I've got to work with somebody, so I want to work with Susan. But I also called up Paul very early on because I don't know, it was an I can't remember how, but I knew this was a topic that fascinated you too. So I asked you, 3 months before the training actually began, what are your tips? And I think you were saying, I'm writing a book about this. I'm trying to gather my thoughts on this. So what are your thoughts on this? And one of the things that you said that really echoed in what we were doing for the rest of the year was that you said that trainers need to be confident to do what they do. And to be confident, they need network. They need other people. They need support. It's a psychological process, a personal process, and they need help. They don't just develop a trainer identity on their own. It's really helpful to be in a community of trainers and to introduce that.
Standing for a group.
It's scary too. It can be scary too, and there's a lot to be learned and a lot of questions to be asked, and that kind of emotional insecurity or emotional kind of process. We never really talk about these things in SF, right? We're not really good at that, but that's is an integral part, and this idea of being confident in what you do, it comes up in other areas too. Like when I do training, I sometimes there's this YouTube film with Evan George talking about the "I don't know" response, right? And he says several times in the video that you have to feel confident in your response, right? That confidence, the confidence in the other person's capacity to answer, the confidence that the question is good enough. Right, that confidence is something that the trainer needs to embody or be able to manifest or be able to. It's in the room. So we were thinking a lot about that, the confidence, being stable enough or secure enough or happy enough or explorative enough, without having the answers necessarily, to go to take that space and hold it. And one of the things that I don't know if it was before or after, but it was definitely during the same time, I got really, this was an amazing project. So I was already really inspired by people signing up saying, I want to do this. I'm like, what? That's amazing. They want to do this. So I'm going to call them. I'm going to pretend that this is like an application. So they have to give reasons, good reasons to why they've showed up and want and have this idea that they want to become a trainer, right? First of all, that's evidence, right? Yeah. They want to become a trainer. What? Tell me, what's the story behind you clicking on your computer saying, yes, I want to do this? What's that story like? And then asking the question, you say, what difference would it make? So getting acquainted to, this is a big step. So a whole year of your life is going to be this. So how would that difference show? And how would you know, both emotionally, personally, socially, in yourself, what would be different? And then I think I asked a really cool question. I asked them, so I asked them, so what if we see you as an ecological being? It's not just you who's doing this course. It's your whole organization, or it's your whole team, or it's your whole family, or it's your whole community. It's a whole region. Through you becoming a trainer. And this was also the case for several of the trainers. They were also embodying their organization. The organization had done pre-work, singling out. We only have one person that we can send to this course. Which person do we send? We have like 10 possible candidates. So it's like, we want to send you because we believe in you, right? So, and that whole idea that they are not alone, it's an ecological thing, right? Like a forest. There's a whole forest coming with all the interactions, with all the life, with all the possibilities that ecology can bring. How would, and then I found out, oh, my boss believes in me, or I'm a bit alone in this, but I'm confident enough to try. And there was all this, there was a context, a social context around everyone, which was also humbling, because that's another thing about being a trainer. You have to be really humble. Right? We don't know what we're doing. That's being created as we speak.
So that helps me to think of one of the things which gives you confidence as a trainer is that context of having lots and lots of stories and experience and connections. And that's the whole thing about coming to wonderful events like this. And I mean, how many hundreds of years of experience have we got in just this little group, never mind all the 140 delegates. So when you're training, like John says, we can all stand in front of a PowerPoint slideshow, and I'm pretty sure that most people, after they've been in our trainings, could probably stand in front of the same slideshow and deliver the contents of the slideshow. What brings the training to life as a trainer is those improvisations that you mentioned, Peter and Paul, where somebody says, but what about this? Or what about that? And they throw a challenge in. And the confidence as a trainer comes from having a story or a related example or a lived experience or a case study or a resource, that you can say, there's, and that's then what I think as trainers we bring. So one of the things thinking about, if you're writing a book, for example, is how do we capture those stories, those examples, those things that we all bring to our training in a resource that new trainers could have a kind of crash course or reference library at their hands. So it's like, oh bollocks, somebody's asked me about this. Here's in this, Hitchhiker's Guide to Solution Focused Practice. There we go. There's
a very good Hitchhiker's Guide in the SF24 YouTube channel, with world-ranging people offering stories, training models, case studies, the lot. All that Julia and I require is someone to rename them in a consistent way and then index them.
This is excellent. This is excellent, Paul. This is excellent because what I was going to quote now after you saying this, Andrew, and you, Paul, added this, is that from last year's conference, Ian Smith, I think his name is about what works in training. And before training, or in the actual beginning of the training, people want, they did research on this, they want examples of when SF has worked well in their own setting. And so that was also something that we knew. So we also collected his research and some other researchers about SF and showed that both we tried to do it with them to be in that stance and we also explicitly made some some handouts, some PowerPoints about it. And actually in the end of the training, two of the brilliant people said that they would go to their municipality and try to start training trainers, and they wanted the example from LSS. How do we supporting people with some disability?
But they need to be supported. Some of them need to have something to do during. There's a high degree of disability.
Yeah. They're still social. Yeah, and then they asked me, because I have done some training for professionals working in that area, and they said, "Do you have an example?" And then this reminds me of all the collected small stories. I think I have almost hundreds of them in my computer. So I called the person, Marie, that I interviewed about how she used solution focus and what benefits they have noticed in their organization and in the one-to-one meetings. And she was so happy to share. So now one of our people from the Train the Trainer used that clip to show. So I really agree that we can maybe add on that level, and it's good to start to collect. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking of this would be a good moment to talk a little bit more about the model that you developed, and that was also on the handout.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Fits really well.
Yeah.
Because the interesting about this model, I mean, I don't like the word model. It sticks in my throat a bit. But it came up in preparation for doing this Train the Trainer. It helped us, Susan and I, to kind of visualize, what are we trying to do here? What are the things that we should be looking after, taking care of? And this idea of taking care is something also very fascinating for me, but that's a side note. But how do we take care of what's important? And this idea that Paul imparted on me, the idea of confidence, the personal, the psychological, is very much in the center of this model. Do you want to?
Yeah. Please, thank you. So this is really showing how careful Jonas and I also did the process. And thank you, Jonas, again. I learned so much. And what we felt in the beginning when we were setting up the program, we felt, of course, we need a structure, and we want to keep the conversations light. We want to be very clear and very open and creative at the same time. You know all about this already. And we felt that maybe we need a model to try to capture and to describe some of the core learning processes that we might use during this whole year. We felt very humble because of the thing that the map is not a territory and stuff like that, and still we wanted to find some labels. We searched for something that maybe the participant would be able to think about, to reflect upon, to feel, and to also relate to in their own learning journey, in their own inner process, and also in the networking together. And very soon, when we started to elaborate that, we felt that, of course, the relational stuff is the most important stuff. So that's where we really started up. We started up by, as Port said, we tried to set up a thrilling and also very safe physical and social environment starting the very first day. And I have a picture of that so that I can show you if you want. And we didn't use this model to start with, we just did it. We tried to have that stance. But maybe from, I don't know, day 2 or something, we explicitly put it out in the room, because then we was on that level to ask them to start to reflect on the model itself. So that was also very, very, very interesting to see. So I will comment a little more when I show the slides from the training. So we have the inter and intra-relational, and from the beginning we didn't use the word inter and intra. I think I am a little inspired by Howard Gardner, the 7 intelligences, who now are 9 intelligences. And I remember me attending a trainers conference way back somewhere in Germany. You were there, Jon? Probably some more were there, and attending a workshop with Jenny Clark, where she used these intelligences. So to be very mindful that learning journeys are different, and we have preferences. People have preferences, and that was really, really something cool to experience. So the inter and intra-relational is a little to build and reflect. And we ask them, what do you need now to reflect on what we just did? How can we harvest in the best possible way from what we did now in the room? And we really stayed longer than we do in usual training, I would say, in that harvesting. And I will show you also a more detailed example later. And then the intellectual stuff, that's really, and that one highlight was you also explaining and describing the story about the history of solution focus, for example. That was something that you could hear, what you say in English, a penny drop in the room. So then we have the clever minds concentrating on taking in. And then we focus on that and harvest from that. And also the structural thing, and they immediately we could see how they picked up on how we did the exercises. And immediately we asked, of course, them, how would you do it? To find your own voice. So we have all these different levels. So please add.
Yeah, it's interesting that I think the intellectual bit, you know, the theories, the stories, the you know, what did Steve do, when, how, you know, how things emerged. That story, that does come up in a basic training too, but not as structured as it would do for a trainer. Because there's something about becoming a trainer is that you're also more acquainted with the history. You probably read more books. You're probably, you know, significant articles. You have some kind of library. Right, and you can see differences, and you know, you're acquainted with 1.0, 2.0, or brief, or you know, the different versions or different styles, and there's some relation to that, and we necessarily wouldn't go into that on a basic training, but you would on a train the trainer, and that makes sense to have some kind of historical context, you know.
What comes up in my mind all the time is how the reflection is so important. Reflection on everything that's done, and that happens in many meta levels. It's like somebody that I was did my first solution focused training with, Wim Braams, a Dutchman. He always used the word, it's a parallel process. It's what you do it is reflected in the exercise, is reflected in the reflection, and when you do train the trainer, it's another parallel level. So what we found really helpful is that when we would reflect on an exercise, for instance, we would split it. We would split, okay, the content of the exercise, what happened, and then the personal side of it, what happened to you, what did you discover, what does that mean for you as a trainer, what does it mean for your program, and do that very diligently all the time. And again, that takes time. I learned to slow down in those trainings.
Yeah.
Speed, and I'm still practicing.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about that last question, which is really cool.
Yeah.
There's a last one.
Well, if you want to, you highlighted, so you want to show a little quick, a little glimpse of stuff that we did.
A little quick and dirty demonstration of some stuff that quick and dirty what Jonas and I did. These are our participants, and this is in the very first day of our training, day 1 out of 12, when we meet in person or digital. So what happened here was that we started in the relational stuff. We already did some exercises with some resource gossiping stuff, some ordinary solution focus exercises. We did something about how they want us to be together in the room to create the most supportive learning journey for the full year and stuff like that. And this is around 2 o'clock in day 1, 2 o'clock after dinner. And you see they are concentrated, aren't they? You will see a picture of them soon again. I will show, and you will see if you see a difference. So what we have on the floor here is them collecting what they have learned so far in the room. Yeah. And I have the pictures here because I'm a saver. I save from okay. It's okay that it takes time. This is in Swedish, sorry. It's okay that it takes time. We have built the feeling in the room, and all the people in the room are fantastic people. anchor solution focus, I put it in myself because I cannot. What I can do is to smitta, to infect other people with solution focus. Infect other people with solution focus. Yeah. Keep it simple. The importance to sit down with people who have sort of the same mindset in this learning journey. To be able to explain also, if needed, purpose and goal with the exercises, and to know something about what and how. So I got it. I got the context. So what we did is we did stuff and we let them collect, and then we worked on from there. And that's also what you do in basic training. What we saw is that this is already on the trainer's level, very much. So it was very, very rewarding for us. Okay, let's continue with this journey quickly. So we go by train. This is Sweden, and this is Sweden, isn't it, for you also? And it's not so difficult to make your partner look good when you work with Jonas, is it? So this is us on day, I think 6 maybe, in the middle of the learning journey. And what we did, we read your article, Katty. Thank you. This is one of the few articles who really explain the basic stance and also connect it to exercises in a very clever way. Thank you very much. I need to send Peter a picture. Yes. Please do. So what we did, that we suggested the people to read the article, the trainers, and we put them in study buddy groups, and we had them to discuss, when in my LF training have I experienced real good training? What in the stance of the trainer and the design of the exercises made a real difference for me? And then what do I want to explore further in my work facilitating LF training? So SF, sorry. So lösningsfokus, solution focus. Okay, good. And then we ask them to design together in their study buddy group a new or reuse. We also support them in reusing, of course, as we always do, like Anton said in the room, we steal. And make an exercise and use it in the room, an exercise that you might also use in the future as in your training. So they came back. Look at their faces now, and how their posture, their stance. And look here, same guys, same guys. Something has happened. I think it's so funny. I didn't see it until I put this slide together. You see, so here is like an exercise about basic assumptions in or presupposition in solution focus, and they made an exercise around it. This is about my umbrella in solution focus, and this is about the rough diamond, and leave as few footprints as possible. Leaving no footprints was one of the articles we used in the training, for example. So they created so amazing, and we could just sit back and, as Peter said, do a lazy chocolate job and let them shine. What we did after the exercises, and this is actually what all of you said, that we made questions that we really carefully explored. So we said to the group who has presented and actually facilitated the exercise in the room, what is this exercise? When is this exercise appropriate and helpful? When more? When can you use it? The timing of it. Mm-hmm. And we also said, what did we learn here in the room now, as Pout said, right now, the feeling and the content of everything. And we split introducing the exercise, because we find that crucial. How do you introduce? And how do you, when you facilitate, when it's ongoing in the room, how do you do to not disturb, but to keep on, be there, but step in front, to go forward and to go back. And they just, they told each other the really detailed about, this is really about training trainers in solution focus, I think. How do we act in a helpful way? and how can we facilitate a rich harvest after this exercise? We're actually doing it now. What do you think about these questions? And they answer. And how could you do it in a group or not, when you not train trainers, when you do solution-focused training? And they were so, they just, and then also ask the actual group, what are you most pleased with and what did you learn? So they could also. So this worked, this was like, before we did this, they asked for more exercises. That was the question. We said, okay, we do it.
This is just a few ideas of what we were doing. There are other things too. One of the things that stood out, I want to say, Hasten said something once. She said, the person we can learn the most of are the people who are doing the studying, right? So that from the trainers, they can tell us what's working. They can tell us what's making sense for them, how they're making. So this is a little glimpse of them also giving us feedback. And yeah, this worked for us. This is what we wanted to do. This really helped us in moving forward. Yes, Paul.
That's very elegant. So I noticed that you are asking solution-focused questions. You're not asking what went wrong in the activity, you're asking what worked in it, what could be better. So it repeats itself at all of these reflective levels.
Yeah. It's again that parallel process that you have there all the time, and we all do that. And it's so nice to be that we're aware of it. And then in a Train the Trainers, that's why I love doing it, is that you get a chance to talk about that. It makes it so much
that's the weird
so
thing.
interesting.
If we reduce it to a model, then I train it as a model, then I'm not doing solution-focused work. No. I'm not consistent with who I am as a trainer. There's a congruence, a discongruence, sorry. It doesn't rhyme. So if the meta message maybe is more important than the message itself, then I need to own that in more ways than just words or gestures. It has to be a full experience, which is not just me, it's us together. Another thing that really helped was also them actually being with us in training. So there will be another level of learning, watching us actually do training. So be observing us working. And they would notice things that we wouldn't notice, the energy in the room or interactions that were going on that we couldn't see, but that was happening as well, which made a big difference. And we also introduced the group to other trainers.
Yeah.
So they tell both
idea.
fairly new trainers and also very experienced trainers. So Anton met them on day 7 and told them how he became a trainer. And then the time after that, there were 4 people from Karlstad who had been trained, kind of young trainers, who had been doing training only a few years, and they would tell their story, how they got into it. And that was the final nail in the coffin that took away the imposter syndrome. Because they were like, if they can do it, we can do it.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to stop us. The level of, that level of, it's not as high, it's a low threshold. It's suddenly a lot lower. So I found fascinating.
What we also really found helpful in the program is that near the end, we would ask them to prepare something to do with the group. As their confidence grew, they would feel confident, and they had experienced by then that feedback is always positive. And that makes that okay, let's get out there. And again, nothing new to all of you, but encourage them to pose their questions to the reflecting team beforehand. What am I insecure about? What would I really like to know more of? Could you pay extra attention to this or that? And that was really nice too. Yeah.
I'd like to ask.
And they came up with the most brilliant and original exercises. It was great learning.
Yeah. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I'd like to shift maybe perspective a bit, wrapping up the workshop that we're in right now. So this changed all of us, I think. I mean, we learn through engaging with the group that we're with, and so I think we have a question. Is it prepared? But the question is how learning to train trainers, how does that change the practice? How does it change the way I am? How does it train? How does it? And we found ourselves a quote, which was kind of, I don't know, I've written it down in Swedish. I'll try and remember a kind of rough English translation of it. But it was this idea of, it was important for us not to do it as we do it. There's no right way to do the model. There's no right way to train. But what was important then was to be confident enough to try out something that they believed in. that they believe that SF could become, even. So it's something that's alive, it's something that's evolving, that's something that's changing. But to be confident to try something out that's in line with what they think SF can become. In what direction is SF moving in? And one thing that maybe that question is coming a little bit from what we're learning from, I mean, maybe both trainers, but also in our own practice, that there are other things alive that questions need to be contained within. They need to be contained in some warmth, in something that's exciting, something that's engaging. If it's not engaging, then the question's not going to work, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you train that? How does that become a part of my practice even more? So how can we? So for instance, hedging has become more important. Hedging, and we don't talk a lot about hedging, I think. But so hedging is how we make ourselves ready or safe for what might come next. So we hedge. We take care of. Hedge.
And Nora, Nora say ready.
Yeah, there's a different word for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we look after what might become in the next moment in what we work. So like, for instance, a very technical would be, is it okay, I'm going to ask you a difficult question? Yeah. And the client will say, oh yeah, that's okay. It might take some imagination, right? Right? Yeah, and the client says, oh, okay, that's fine. And then you ask the question, and that's easy. Then you get it's more successful going into that process like that. Or tentative words, perhaps, maybe. Those kind of things it's hedging. It makes it easier for us to work together. And it's the same thing, how a solution-focused process comes alive. There's a lot of hedging. There's a lot of taking care of the room, the space, the invitation, the coming together. What happens before is not irrelevant for what comes in the moment. Hedging. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And
use seduction.
And just to add a little bit of theory, if those of you are theoretically inclined, I kind of like theory a bit. But Nora Bateson has been thinking about these things a lot recently, only in the last few couple of years, and she's come up with there's an English word for where there are things embedded in what we're doing that comes up in the system later or in our collaboration later, which is bad. We call that insidious. Things are insidious, right? This family who's just had a baby, we know that child is going to become a criminal. It's insidious, right? But there isn't the opposite word for when it's something vital or something good or something useful. So she's come up with one word called afani poesis, which is about the unseen properties of vital change. And only recently it dawned on me, because you were talking about this a few months ago, and she said how important it was to keep the unseen unseen. What's there is not meant to be pulled into the open. It's meant to be respected. It's meant to be looked after. It's meant to be gestured towards. It's something we invite. It's like a compost. If we know what's in the compost that works, if we brought everything out, the compost would die. Yeah. So we brought all the chemical processes, all the insects, all the microbes. We brought that out into the open and isolated them each and taught each other. These are the microbes. These are the things. That compost would be dead. So a good gardener knows to look after its compost, right? And it's the same thing if we're working with plants. Like if a question is a plant or something life is lively in our meeting, and it emerges. So looking after the conditions for that, the prerequisites, the properties of what enables that to happen, which I find really fascinating, and I find that's really changed the way I look at the practice. That's part of the work that we do, which is very seldomly described and very hard to put into words.
Do you have a resource, a book? Or?
Yeah, there's an article. I can write down. I can write it up because it's kind of hard to spell.
So this is part of helping or supporting trainers finding their own voice. And I think what Jonas spoke about is also this.
Yes. Would it be nice to have a little chat about that and with some reflections on this question? Yeah. The first one is more a play with words that we had, the three of us. Are you learning thrice over if you're training trainers? But how does training trainers affect your way of being SF or being with SF, and what impact might that have on your work? Bit of a philosophical ending maybe, but have a little chat. Okay, people. 1, 2, 3 nuggets from your conversations? Because they're just too good not to be heard by the rest of the group. What was a nugget in your discussion? A nugget.
I just want to mention it was nice to see Jonas get carried away on his knees. Being humble.
Be humble. Brilliant. Oh, microphone. Thank you very much. Could you, yeah. What was your nugget?
Our nugget.
Just now.
I was sharing my personal journey for the past years about how I evolved and changed the way I brought SF for people in working in organization, and the difference about SF in organization with SF in personal coaching, etc., and how useful it could be, and how I see it myself in that place. With it has a different color there than in the different setting. This has been the result of my journey of teaching and trying to train trainers. This is
nice. Thank you very much. Transferring from one area to the next. What was your nugget? Anyone?
So many nuggets.
Yes, I'm sure. But the shiniest one.
A shiny one is
shiniest one.
The generative possibilities of working with a group of trainers, as you've shown to come up, for example, with new activities that suit the various contexts. I'd like to see some of that on refreshing some of the language of organisational metaphors, which are often problem-focused and very unhelpful, and that they're metaphors, and compost and muses might be more generative metaphors, and that having a group of people to think of that together and try them out and test them would be very productive.
Okay, wow, lovely idea.
Because I'm really fascinated by the fact that after being 10 years or even more in solution focused, I still have this realization that, yes, this what I thought is only a metaphor. Yeah. Like we were talking with Katya, and I said her, like, tools, and she stopped me like, tools, okay. That's also, and I was like, after that many years, you can still tell me things which are so new. So this compost thing was like food for thought for me.
That's compost for you. Keep watering it. Okay, one last little nugget, because we really need to stop. Quick little one nugget. Did you could say something? Is that okay?
I'm sorry. I take away that idea of spreading confidence, because confidence is so important. And I know that people always assign me confidence. You're so confident about it, and I want to give it to others. Oh. And that's something I take away as a big question. How can I do that even better? Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Let us close off. Did you? Yeah. Did you want to add something? But yeah, we have to round off. We'll continue over lunch. Let's just end by thanking you so much for sharing your wisdom, your experience, your freedom of thinking with all of us. That was really amazing. And we can only hope that it contributes a little bit to this dream that we have. We need more SF in the world. That's the feeling we have in so many fields and areas. And please train trainers and have it spread like wildfire.